Little update on the LS1RX8 project. We have the 8.8 in. We're working on some smooth valve covers for it so that we have a little more clearance at the back corners of the engine bay. We've got a significant amount of wiring relocated, so we have a little more room on this side of the motor. We went with an LS1RX8 kit because if there's something available as a kit, buy it, start with that if nothing else. Well, fitment is poor, especially with the sway bar. From the factory, the sway bar mounts up here, and the end link is actually on the back side of this control arm. And with that sort of geometry, the end link is actually on the back side, comes up and hooks right into the sway bar. Nice and perfect, fits great. Well, with the LS in here, everything has to be dropped down so that you have room for the oil pan. If you don't do that, you're not going to have enough clearance for the pan to get in there and clear everything. So what we have is a situation with the sway bar end link where it constantly binds the way this kit is engineered. And clearly I can't move the sway bar up anymore, and I really can't move it back any further. And the lowest angle I can really get with the steering rack at full travel, not interfering with the boot, is like this. So we're coming up with a solution to kind of adapt a white line performance sway bar with some custom end link adapters to where everything will clear and have a little bit better geometry for the sway bar end link so it's not constantly in a state of bind. The purpose of a sway bar is to link both sides of the suspension so that they rise and fall uniformly. And how you accomplish that is you tie a sway bar end to a control arm so that if this raises or lowers, the sway bar end link puts a force torsionally on this bar that's transferred to the other side of the suspension. And that keeps everything uniform and helps with roll-in and cornering and things like that. Now, leverage applies to this as well, so the more length of this arm, the more torsional loading you're going to have on this bar when the suspension moves. So if we took like a factory sway bar and extended it backwards to reduce the issue of binding that we were seeing with the LS1RX8 kit, we would have a situation where the bar isn't as stiff as it was in a factory situation with like the factory length of arm. Since we know we need to extend the mounting point for the sway bar end link rearward, and that has an effect on the sway bar of softening it, we're going to start with a stiffer sway bar to start with. This white line sway bar is made of solid steel as opposed to the factory, which is hollow. So at the end of the day, we're going to end up with roughly the same stiffness as a factory sway bar, even though we have changed the geometry by lengthening the arms. We've got some adjustable end links. I think they're for a Civic. These are also a white line part. And this is roughly where we're going to want to have everything positioned when we're installed and bolted up. This gives enough clearance that we're not going to run into the sway bar, and it gives enough articulation in the end link that it allows this control arm to actually sit parallel. So that's what we're looking for. We don't want anything to bind. We don't want anything to interfere. Something like this will give us about what we want in terms of fitment. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a template and cut kind of a mock-up bracket out of some scrap wood we have. And we're going to do some test fitting here. So I used this piece of paper and traced the end of the sway bar with my greasy hands and made this nice, perfect template. We've got that all measured in CAD, but since we're just doing kind of a mock-up thing, I'm going to cut the holes out of the center so we can transfer them to the little piece of wood we cut and start mocking stuff up. 2-second template, coloring on the job. All right, now move to the other one. Yeah, so I thought I was going to be clever by using the absolutely free material to prototype with that actually has like measuring indicators on it. Yeah, that didn't work, so we're going to use some scrap aluminum instead. Now at maximum suspension travel, which we should be pretty close since there isn't a motor in, I want this end link to be pointed slightly rearward. So that's about where I have it sitting right now. You can kind of see the angle if I move over here. I'm going to mark that additionally there as another place where I'd like to actually try and drill a hole, see how I like that fitment. Quick little measurement and markup. At maximum, we want the center line of the hole 110 millimeters from this edge. Minimum 82 millimeters. I'm guessing around 89 millimeters for where I actually want the hole. So I'm going to actually use this piece and try to mark that up and drill a hole and test it out here. I've got a picture of this. I don't really need to keep it, so we might as well try something, see how it works.
We're not completely bolted up yet, but I'm already not liking the fitment on that joint in the back. It's already pretty close to maxed out in terms of its angle. So I'm gonna pull that back off and space it out a little bit with some washers, see how far out we want to bring it. We've got a good amount of space between that and the shock, so hopefully we can just space that out and get good fitment after all. Here's how things look for tonight. Everything came out pretty well. I'm happy with how everything fits so far. There's an appreciable amount of space between the shock and the little mounting bolt for the end link going through the new bracket. So I think this bushing here on the inside, I think that needs to be a little bit longer. I'll measure that and approximate about what I think it's going to be. This bracket design, that should work really well. I think it's something we're going to be able to just sketch up and have cut here in town, make it out of steel, make it a little thicker. And I think that's about that. So as far as this angle, we want the joint on the top a little bit further out towards the shock so that we have a little bit more travel left and right as this sway bar moves to kind of more of a level position. And then from the side, see how I can get you a view of that. The end link is actually pointed backwards at just a little bit of an angle so that as the sway bar raises in this direction and pulls forwards towards the front of the car, we still have travel on this joint down here. And there we go, all sketched up and laser cut. Let's get them installed. Super happy with the way this came out. Check it out. It's always great to make some progress on a project. Next up, we're going to be working on rerouting some of these lines so that we can clean up the engine bay a little bit more. Got to make room for the LS. If you'd like to see more updates on this, be sure to like and subscribe.